guy supported me because he attributed my fucking comics to a Coen Brothers movie. So let's go ahead and let's go put him on. Hey, Ryland, what's going on? I'm going to be drawing.
How you guys doing?
Yeah. So let me take a moment and log into one of the chats. I primarily have a lot of Facebook live people logging on. So they're going to be logging on in a minute. So what kind of got you to do this via Kickstarter, by the way?
Oh, Kickstarter? Wow.
I know
that's a long story.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Well, no, I mean, I've been flirting with Kickstarter for a long time, but I was always terrified of it.
Yeah.
I respected, it's obviously good to, obviously good to get that money, and it's obviously good to, be able to kind of reach the people who are reading your comic almost immediately. I mean, it's what I really love about the format, the platform, excuse me, is that it's like, it's immediately interactive. I mean, it's like I've been putting books out in comic shops for a while now, and you get to meet your readers here and there at cons and stuff like that, but there's not a ton of interaction with Kickstarter. It's just immediate, and the fan base is kind of crazed in a great way, very involved, very interactive, and so I was excited about all those things. What really terrified me is I've heard horror stories of these campaigns becoming kind of full-time jobs, and particularly the fulfillment really terrifies me, and I'm still terrified of fulfillment, sitting here with 160 backers 7 days in. I don't know where I'm going to end up, but it's almost like the worst thing that can happen to you is what did our friend Charlie Stickney got? I don't know if he got 1,000 or 1,200 backers last go around, and just the sheer number of packages that he has to send out. I mean, he was like, I can take, I can send out 40 a day. It's gonna take me a full month,
I had about like 168 when I was done, and at first there was a bit of a delay because not only getting my stuff in, but also like the COVID-19 shit happened. So I was like, okay, I'm trying, but I did let people know, but luckily I got my stuff in earlier than I said it would happen. I kind of overestimated because you just didn't know, because I literally, I think, got everything literally right before delays started happening. So I was like in the time zone, right? Yeah. But what I did was that I sent it out to all my backers, like, hey, look, I know some of you wanted to meet me at the con. That's cool, but if you still wanted, if you want to do that, that's fine. I don't know when it's going to happen, but also, give me, but just let me know what you want. And most of them were really cool about it. People that I know were going to be fine about it, but still, it was just one of those deals where they were just like, okay, well, we're not really sure what to do at this point. So they were cool with it, and then when then it kind of got more and more serious, then I was like, well, I can't go to the post office. I got to figure it out. And then I found out about pirate ship through one of my friends, and what it is, it's free. All you need is a postal scale, like right here, while everything falls down. So postal scale, and what's nice about the postal scale? Hey, Amanda, how's it going? So hold on. God damn it. Here. So it's like a postal scale. It's a small investment. I had one anyway. And then what's nice about Pirate Ship, it'll give you rates. So even when I was trying to figure out postage rates for the Kickstarter, it gave me more realistic rates than actually going on USPS and trying to figure out the whole fucking thing. So I could just plug in like some addresses across the world and kind of have an idea how much it was per weight and everything. So, but they won't ship out anything lower than a 4x6 envelope. But they will. But you do have to put in the dimensions. But they're really good, and they'll pick up next day from your house. Yeah, I mean, I've started to sort of investigate the fulfillment services because, again, it's kind of, I mean, I love the platform now. I think it's going to be I'd like to do 4 of these a year if I can. Yeah. I think so. Again, it's just there's such an opportunity to build a fan base there, and I mean, the biggest hurdle for me in putting out these books, and I've put out a couple. I feel like maybe we should touch on that first. So I wrote in Hollywood for a long time. For about the last 15 years, I've been writing
film and TV projects, mostly big poppy action movies for people like Ridley Scott and Justin Lin and Luc Besson and J.J. Abrams. And I don't know, a few years back, I swerved into the comic book lane. My first book was Aberrant, which is a kind of a love letter to 70s paranoid spy thrillers. Action Lab Entertainment released that. Went for about 10 issues. Won a Ringo Award last year for Best Villain. I was nominated for 2 others, including Best Single Issue, and then I was nominated for Best Writer, alongside a bunch of kind of weird, crazy dudes like Scott Snyder and Brian K. Vaughan and Bendis, and so weird. And then I put out a book called Banjax, just kind of a dark superhero noir, kind of Death Wish with a superhero. That was pretty well received. It was on about a dozen critics' 10 best lists and all that. And then now The Jump is on Kickstarter, as you mentioned. And The Jump is a thriller that takes place in the world of astral projection. Kind of a, little Born Identity sort of thing, if it were like directed by David Fincher and dripping with macabre, and fun stuff. So like I was saying, I've been putting books out in comic shops for a long time, and the biggest problem was always funding these things. I mean, it costs a shit ton of money to pay an artist, pay a letterer, pay a colorist, all that stuff. And so went out of pocket on a few of them, and then I started kind of treating them like I would treat a film. I would go out and find investors, but then you owe investors a lot of money. They're sticking their nose and everything. You got to run everything by them. It was I had a couple of unpleasant experiences with investors, and so the idea of Kickstarter kind of freeing me up from that whole like investor treadmill is really interesting, But then also there's this other fan base there. Like I said, this whole rabid fan base. There are people who kind of buy all their books in comic shops, and then there are people who buy most of their books on Kickstarter. And there's some crossover, but they tend to be very separate groups. And so I think that particularly in these times where like we don't know where the industry is going, like the comic industry kind of like burned to the ground over the past couple of months, and we're still trying to figure out where it's going and all that stuff. I think that the future kind of looks like this, some sort of hybrid. Guys like Charlie Stickney, David Avalone, like I think they've they've really kind of cracked it where you put a foot in kind of both arenas, right? Like Charlie, well, both Charlie and David, they started on Kickstarter with their books. Charlie, kickstarted 5 issues of White Ash, and then once it was ready, he took it to a traditional publisher, and now Scout Comics is putting it in comic shops, and so Avalone did the same thing. I mean, they kickstarted the first. He and Kevin Eastman kickstarted the first trade of Drawing Blood, and then they put that in comic shops themselves. When you're Kevin Eastman, you can do that. But anyway, I think that moving forward, and I've been talking with a lot of creators about this. I think if you ignore either of those avenues, like you're kind of doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing the book a disservice because you're missing just kind of a part of your fan base, your prospective fan base, I guess. So long-winded way, I was long overdue to kind of kick my way into Kickstarter, and so things kind of the planets aligned on it. I mean, I had been flirting with it for about 2 years. You have been on my Kickstarting Your Comic panels.
Yeah. You've asked me to do that.
Yeah. So I don't do anything. I don't just do something, right? I mean, I'm kind of methodical. I'm crazy in the research I do, and so I was gonna learn Kickstarter backwards and forwards before I took the plunge, and so I am lucky in that been around the block at Comic Cons, and so at most cons I kind of have an open invitation to kind of just put panels up. and I'm usually good for a panel or two at every con that I go to. And so when I started when I became interested in Kickstarter and I wanted to figure it out, it was like, well, that seemed like a good opportunity. That's usually how if I don't know about something in comics, what I will do is I will find like 5 really smart people who know it way better than I do, and I will get them up in front of a con crowd. Depending on the crowd, you're talking 50, 100, 200 people, and I will just pick their brains. I will just ask them every question under the sun. And so I did probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 Kickstarter panels for cons, and I think you were on probably a couple of them.
Yeah.
And I just learned from the best. I learned from people who had done it really successfully, and so I had all the knowledge.
Yeah.
I was still fucking terrified to do it. I still didn't want to do the fulfillment.
It's kind of weird. It's like after a while you kind of feel dead inside in a way when you do it, because you're just like, I think if I went through this now when I was like fresh, I'd be like, you'd kind of think, God, is like the whole universe like conspiring against me to fuck this up. But even then, like, you still get that kind of feeling sometimes. I'm going to tell you, every Kickstarter is going to be different. You will kind of know a pattern. You will know when to release it, just kind of an idea. Like, I know Russell Nolte, he goes by numbers and facts, and that's a good thing. But sometimes I go with my gut, say, okay, I'm going to release this and this. But it's like, but I have it all figured out, like the 2 stretch goals and how much it'll be, how much I'll realistically need for my project and everything. And if I can't have all the funding now, how will I break it down? So just to let you know, it's just one of those things. And, you're going to find your Zen in that. I know, like, by the way, Ryland is, what is it? You're a master at Zen Buddhism, is that it? Or something? I'm trying to remember exactly because my brain is full of crap.
I am, for whatever it's worth, I am an ordained Soto Zen Buddhist monk, which just means that, I don't know what it means actually. I've been practicing Zen for, I don't know, probably 20 years or so, 15 years really seriously, and then, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, my teacher thought that, I don't know, it was time that I start teaching a little bit too, and so, they put a robe on me, they shaved my head, all that noise. So, it doesn't mean much, it just means that I've been doing this for a while, and that, I help other people do it, I guess. So yeah, it's helped me a lot. I'm still a pretty angry guy, but you should have seen me before.
I kind of understand that in a weird way. For me, it was like I was kind of aggro. You knew me shortly before I had the surgery, and then after, when basically, I think you knew me before the surgery when I had totally. And then like afterwards, and even Madeline was saying, you're kind of more relaxed, Christy, because it's like I had this like monstrous thing like chewing at my innards kind of thing. And it wasn't like something that overtly, like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm doubled over in stomach pain, or I have a heart attack, or, it wasn't like absolute sharp pain. It was just these like lots of little aches and pains. Like, we were kind of around the same age, so it's like, oh fuck, we feel like we're 20, but Jesus Christ, this is her, But like, fuck, I kind of feel like I'm 30, but oh, this hurts a little bit more, But it was like weird little aches and pains, and no, I'm not going to call on anybody to do like a total hypochondriac thing, but then like there was like a small pattern of other stuff, but following up to that. But I think I'm kind of at what I guess I'm trying to say, like in this rambly way, is that like we kind of just let go of things, or we just learn how to let go of things, and sometimes we need to have techniques to do it. Like you had Zen Buddhism. I'm trying to remember the division of Zen Buddhism, or the
Soto.
So what's the difference between Soto and all the other ones?
Well, I mean, there are way too many to way too many to kind of describe. I mean, there are dozens, at least, probably hundreds of sects of Buddhism, but of Zen also. So Soto is Japanese Zen, and there are several sects of Japanese Zen, but the 2 primary ones are Soto and Rinzai. Mm-hmm. Rinzai includes a meditation element, but is primarily concerned with koan practice, kind of these unsolvable riddles that have become so popular in pop culture, like what is the sound of one hand clapping? You're given a question to contemplate. You go and you sit with it. You go before a teacher. You're meant to answer it. Usually that answer is wrong, and you're sent back to think about it some more. It's a way to kind of, it has a number of purposes, but short and sweet, it's a way to kind of break you out of your standard everyday A to B to C thinking. Soto Zen is we don't really do the koan practice thing. It is primarily just focused on meditation, and that's what calls to me. What I like about it is the Soto Zen has more in common with science, physics specifically, than any religion I've ever encountered. I'm not interested in religion, and you look at, I've sampled a lot of Buddhism over the years, and there are Vipassana practices that I've done that feel more like it is a religion. Once you get into some of the Tibetan Buddhism, Buddhism moved into Tibet and mixed with the modern, with the local mysticism there, and so some of that stuff even feels like fucking Star Wars. I'm not interested in kind of any of that stuff, but Soto Zen is it's really stripped down. It's just about kind of looking at the world as it is, peeling everything else back. It's more of it's like an applied realism with a meditation element, and so that's helped me a lot, because I can get in my head and I can I can make anything into a fucking war and a battle and a fight, and once you kind of strip all the bullshit away, it becomes harder to do that. So it's helped me. I mean, I think everybody needs something, right?
Yeah. I mean, with me, like, I think I've been noticing people really love Demon Bitch in this day and age. Like, they don't feel safe, like, making commentary. But what I've been told out of, like, my comic work, it's like, you just, like, some people kind of pussyfoot around the thing. It's like, you just take the thing and say, here. But I think probably almost dying in a way, like, kind of, I don't know if you had near-death experiences, and I'm not about to, like, say mine's the ultimate. But I think you kind of, if you've had one, it's sort of, like, weird. It's like, you don't have the fear type shit so much as you used to, but you do, like, have some anxiety on other things, but you kind of care less on on another level. It's weird. Like, you're more empathetic on one level, but on another level, some things are bullshit and you just have no patience for them. So you're just like, get the fuck out of my face. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I think you know this, that I had my own little brush right around the same time you did.
I think it was like, I know you had a stomach thing going on, but I think what was the thing again?
Yeah. I mean, it's still a mystery to a certain degree, but I mean, I just got really sick and was in the hospital a couple of times.
Oh fuck.
And so that it shakes you up. It changes everything, and I had to change the way I was approaching a lot of things. It's actually the incident that set me down the whole Zen path was a sort of near-death experience. A lot of Buddhism, they talk about Kensho, which is almost like a enlightenment moment, where you sort of I don't know, you grasp like some sort of like ultimate defining wisdom, if only for a second, right? But it's fleeting. I mean, it's like it's really what meditation is kind of coming back to that wisdom over and over again, trying to reground yourself in it all the time. But I was out at a bar when I was kind of a young punk. Somebody said some things about my girlfriend that I didn't like. Big dude being an asshole. And I was easily excitable back then, and so I got in the guy's face, and I told him what I was going to do to him. And it was clear that I rattled him a little bit, and he didn't know what to do with me, and so he pulled a switchblade and basically tried to gut me.
Oh fuck!
And so and so by some miracle, I got out of this situation unharmed. I still don't know how or why. But it was like a light flash before your eyes sort of a situation. Was shaken up, woke up the next day, and it's like, okay, well, I need to I need to take a really long look at how I'm operating here, or this is going to end poorly. And so, yeah, I've made some pretty substantial changes since then, and all for the better. But yeah, those things shake you up. I mean, and I think that those things are almost gifts, right? It's like we like to think, oh, woe was me, like I went through this thing and it's terrible and blah 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 blah. But it's like, I mean, we're seeing it now. I don't want to get political on this thing because
no. But I mean, it is true. It's kind of apocalyptic.
I mean,
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, there's some, it is fucking raining fire right now, right? But there's also amazing change happening, and the world is going to be a better place because all of this fucking horrible shit happened, right?
Well, it's
that seems pretty clear to me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was like,
no, go ahead.
I am listening. I'm just like processing it. And it's like, oh, I gotta, and I apologize. I'm not trying to be all like, hey, Kurt, hey, guys. If you have any questions, ask Rylan. Definitely don't feel like you have to just listen to his talk. I'm just say hi and stuff. He's totally cool.
Can I see the questions somewhere, or
I can read them to you. You can log into my Facebook Live and then see it, and but you might want to mute it because it's going to drive you batty having two audio things. But no, I get you on that because it's like sometimes it's like I kind of have to laugh because like when I was 13 up, I was growing up as a Korean South Baptist. And like we would have Bible study, and then for some reason we talked a lot about the apocalypse. So like he said, oh yeah, the stars falling from the sky, that could be ICBMs and stuff, and we did that. And I was thinking like, that's kind of cool. Like even though it kind of freaks you out on a certain level, it's like the stars falling from the sky. Like, but the most important thing was like they were saying like what the prophets probably saw translated into what they were going in their temporal space compared to ours, which would be whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
So we were sitting there. And it kind of, I mean, as what I've realized is Armageddon is really like if we just never believe in ourselves enough and we just don't hold a certain part of ourselves holy enough and we just totally fucking hate everybody and everything. Now, there are people going around saying, I fucking hate people, they're dumb. No, it would be way worse than that for us to, like, we'd be completely and totally misanthropic like Sodom and Gomorrah, which has been inaccurately used to say, oh, let's go and trash gay people. And it's like, no, it had nothing to do with that. These were people that were total pieces of shit. Like, they had absolutely no morals. Like, they would rape any kid in the street or something. This is not about really gay people, But, for example, like, but stuff like that, like, to that level of debasement and shittiness to everybody, where we just absolutely did not care about anybody else but ourselves, but even ourselves in a most destructive way, because you do need to care about yourself, because I have seen this true. If you don't care about yourself on a certain level, you will treat other people like shit, because you treat yourself like shit on a certain level. Like you're telling yourself you don't deserve to be loved or anything else like that. So, but as I was thinking, it is kind of like the apocalypse, and it's kind of funny because it's like we are seeing things in our system, but I think we're better communicating it, because I think earlier when the message of Black Lives Matter, and again, this is not getting political, this is not getting all like, oh, I agree with one side or another, it's just that at the time, and I think the news media is also to blame about this, where they don't eloquently, or they don't let people spread the message of what it's really about. They put up a bunch of distraction and about flares and like, oh, this is what it's about, and it just totally everybody misunderstands, which is not good. But now, because we have more advanced phones, we're better at using them, we're more used to using them, now we're seeing a much more cohesive message. And we're like, oh, now we get it. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, before it was kind of like, you would get it from this news source and that news source, and people would record it on their phones, but 10 years ago our phones weren't as good as it is now. Now it's like we got a supercomputer in there, so we're recording everything. Like, on TMZ, they had the one where two black women that were part of the Black Lives Matter, they saw these like skinny like ass stick figure girls like tagging the side and with Black Lives Matter, but they were not a part of that movement. And they're saying, what are you doing? They were yelling at them. And so we get to see kind of more realistic face on the ground of what's going on. So I think now it's a call to say, okay, we have these institutions like the police and stuff, they have very, very noble things, but we have to also accept. And when I say accept, I don't mean we have to condone, because that's not what I mean. Like, I had to accept the fact I had a 6-inch pancreatic tumor. I mean, it had to go out, but I just had to accept the fact it was there. And then I had to figure out and then we had to have the solution of where to take it out and what it was. So it didn't screw with me anymore. So it's like now we have to accept the fact there is this really toxic undertone for, in policemen, the military, whatever, You know, it does exist. We have to accept that it does exist. This does not mean that we have to be okay with it. It just means, okay, this exists. What do we do to fix this? And I think also the dialogue has become clearer now, whether or not we want it to be. Yeah. But I think like when people, especially like when I study a lot of spiritual aspects or New Age aspects, they would say, oh, you need to be positive all the time. Oh, you need to go and accept things. But here you are, your very real psyche, and probably what you've had to deal with is like, I'm angry about this. I'm not happy about this. This is fucked up. Like, why are you telling me to be accepting, like, I should just let it go? And then it's just like, oh, yeah, you should just forget about your pain, anger and pain. And the problem is that it just makes it worse. But they never teach you to go through your hate pile and just admit, look, I hate this person, I hate this thing because it did this to me, or it didn't. It just represents something awful to me. But once you like kind of admit it to yourself, when you actually admit it to yourself, you can let it go. Like, I went through my anger and shit. I'm done, you know?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is that, you know, people, it's a common misconception that people think that, you know, anger has no place in spiritual practice, and, you know, that you, whatever you sit meditation for a couple of years and then boom, your anger just fucking evaporates, right? Your relationship to your anger changes with work, which ends up being a very positive thing. Your anger doesn't run you, you run your anger. But here's the thing is like anger is very necessary and very valuable. You know what I'm saying? Just like fear, you know, fear is there because like, you know, you know, we're a couple of thousand years back, we're walking through a forest and a fucking, you know, we're walking through the jungle and a fucking, you know, lion jumps out, right? Fear is going to send us fucking running. It's going to keep us alive, right? Anger is like a similar thing, right? And so, so what I will say is that, like, you know, any positive change that's ever happened in the world, whether it's the civil rights movement, what we're seeing now with Black Lives Matter, the American Revolution, on and on and on and on, all of that change happened because somebody was really pissed off, right?
Yeah, and I think that the trite shit people say now, like, oh, you should just get over it. Oh, you should, and I'm going to talk, and it's like, are you really listening to me? Because I've been noticing this over a course of time in my own personal experience, barring aside from this, we tend to have a habit of just yelling at each other or just talking at each other. Like, if you were telling me something that was going on medically with you, and you were just like going, yeah, like with my stomach, it's this and that. Oh, you should take 2 Tums and just go away. And it's like, you're not listening to me, you know? Yeah. You're not empathizing with me. Or if I said to you, well, that's okay, Ron, like, I had a pancreatic tumor, like, it's probably nothing. No, like, you know, I heard it and I threw out a few suggestions, but I said, man, it sounds like something that's annoying and shitty to go through, you know? So I would like to think I empathized with you. So I think I did, because you're still talking to me.
yeah. No, you're good. I mean, but it's, you know, but any of these things, I mean, anger is ultimately a fire, right? And that fire can completely consume us. It can burn out of control and completely consume us, or we can kind of harness it and it can kind of propel us to the fucking moon. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think that's what we're seeing now. And you make an interesting point where, I mean, we are in the this information age, and that can be positive and problematic, because there's so much out there that basically you can kind of cull anything and everything to prove your point, right? And that's what we're seeing, and that's what you were talking about before, where it's like people tend to dig in. You know, it's like if you show somebody one video and you're like, look, this is going on. Well, they can probably go out and find a video that shows you the exact opposite. They'll dig into their position. And again, you know, this person watches Fox News, this person only watches CNN. We're going to dig in, and we're not going to listen to each other. But what is happening now is that there is so much out there. You at some point reach a critical mass, and then it becomes like undeniable what is happening, right? The sort of outrageous things that are going on, and then, you know, no one can deny it then, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, that has been the beauty of the last couple of days, this last week or whatever, is that we are seeing people who were immovable for so long. You know, the NFL came out and admitted they were wrong about Colin Kaepernick. I mean, I never thought in a million years that I would see that happen.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. What kind of sucks also, what I've noticed what the media does too, to black people, but other people of color, which pissed me off, which I fully realized. Like, I always knew they kind of did some sort of weird, fucked up thing. You know what I mean? Like, they were always showing, like, this thing. We always knew, but we didn't know how subtle. But one of the things that they would do is, like, you know how in Michigan you had the armed white protesters, right? Armed to the teeth.
Yeah.
They marched peacefully. And people were like going, yeah, but you show black people, like, looting and shit and everything. But the thing is, what I found out is that there was actually an equal number or about the same as black protesters in Michigan. Armed to the teeth, had their guns out and everything. Nothing happened. But the media did not cover that. But what I noticed, like, especially with people of color, sometimes, like, especially, but certain times they'll kind of do this weird scattershot thing, but they will only show people that are black that are protesting. I'm not saying these are protesters, okay, but I'm just putting out this narrative that the media does. But then they'll show a bunch of black people, like, looting and destroying things, and sometimes it's not always the most current one, or it's showed after a certain point. You get what I mean? So there's a subliminal message. Oh, you know, when black people protest, they loot. Which is not true. You know, it's like there's plenty of peaceful protests. But it's like putting this message of inequality in so many ways. Like, you have resentment to injustice and all this. They perpetuate that dialogue. Like, with the media, they actually were very, very soft on this Chinese Communist government because they've been hardcore, like, putting out misinformation left and right about where the virus origin. Like, they blamed America to Japan to even Africa. And they were treating Africans in that country like 60s level civil rights movement type shit. Like, they wouldn't let them sit and eat there. And they were spreading this, like, bullshit like, oh, well, let's go and, like, you know, Africans brought it in. It's like, no, asshole. Like, the genetic marker is from that area in China. Sorry. But it set people off because, like, they were also showing, it's like for Asian Americans, they try to go and show piecemeal things. And it is reported, but it's hidden. Like, Harvard was actually doing some weird testing or weird standardized crap with education to keep Asians from even entering into the college.
Yeah.
They were found out, I think it was several years ago. Yeah, and, like, I was just laughing. I just was, like, going, you know, this shit happens, man. And this is designed from a system that's going, like, oh, let's go and, like, make it fair for everybody. But it's like, then that system is used to kind of fuck with people everywhere. And, like, who do they fuck with more? Like, people of color. I mean, but I also noticed this thing, too. It's like, it's not that you shouldn't go and call out inequality when you do it. But what I hate is, like, they kind of pound into my head how I should be worried for my safety because I'm Asian. For example, I'll use my experience. Or I'm a woman and I need to be protected at all times. And I'm, like, going, it's constant. And it's like, why are you putting into my head that I'm helpless? That is, I know for a fact, like, when I felt that way, I would be victimized because bullies and pieces of shit and predators can smell that from you, and that's a damaging thing you tell people, either if they're women and all this. No matter who you are, if you're told, like, you're not enough on a certain level, you just can't go out. Now I'm understanding dangers. Like, you might not want to go out and do this because of this, but it's this constant dialogue of, like, hey, you're a girl and you're this and that, then there's all these disadvantages. Like, leave me alone, I just want to go to the fucking supermarket. So it's like, I see a lot of people really disempowered on so many levels, or no one will listen to you because you're this or that and the other thing. And it's like, why are we sending out all these fucked up messages? It's very emotionally abusive, and I think that's like a lot of the media and the politicians. It's like a lot of them are like that. They'll be for people who are, for example, like, a lot of them will be for women, and then when you find out their records, they're fucking shit. So it's ridiculous to me. And Rose said, yeah, that pisses me off, not being rewarded for being bright. You know, she got a lot of shit for, you know, being class. I won't say it unless she wants to, but you get what I mean. It's like, I understand, like, people are not always going to be nice to you, no matter what. And I think it's like the responsibility of your parents to kind of build you up from the inside to get that. But what I hate is, like, overwhelming. I kind of blame the media a lot with this. I'm not saying that people perpetrating certain things don't have responsibility. They do, you know. But I think the media puts in this fucked up dialogue to us as well. You know, they kind of play with our emotions. They're like the little asshole kid in high school that would go around spreading shit about everybody, and them two people was like, why the fuck do you have a beef with me? What? I don't know. But they twist the truth just enough to get you to fight each other. Which I hate.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, media, society. I mean, it is interesting how God, we grow up and we're just kind of steeped in this shit, and then we get kind of spit out,
Yeah.
and we are kind of I don't know, we're a bitch to our programming, right? I mean, that's what that's what a lot of the Zen practice is you kind of sit alone and you just sort of watch yourself, you watch your mind work for hours, and you see all of the programming eventually, right? You see sort of everything that's wrong. You see all these sort of preconceptions and misconceptions and prejudices that you have that maybe you didn't even know you had. I mean, it was bad for me because, I mean, you bring up, oh, your parents are supposed to do this, your parents are supposed to do that. I mean, I think it's, and it's, it's to a certain degree, it's not their fault because they were programmed this way too, but like our parents do a shitty job, right? I mean, I had a lot of programming to undo when I came out of where I came out of. I mean, I grew up in a housing project in Detroit, right?
Oh wow.
And you were either black or you were white, right? And and the black people stayed over here and the white people stayed over there, and we didn't mix, we didn't trust each other. If I was on the black side of the tracks, at a certain time, then I was probably up to no good, and vice versa. And that does something awful to you, right? It's like you said, you're immediately on guard, you're immediately mistrustful, all of these things. And what was, so I was a wreck when I was a 18-year-old kid and spit out into the world. I was lucky in that I ended up at the University of Michigan, which is like one of the most like diverse and liberal institutions in the world. It's basically like Berkeley East, and so
yeah, it's like also really good quality education. It's hard to get in that school too.
And so and then I moved out to Los Angeles, which of course is a melting pot and a cultural center, and went to the American Film Institute, which is another just sort of very political forward place and all that stuff. And so I had the opportunity to kind of untie all those knots that I had been tied up in, but I still have everybody I grew up with is still back in Detroit doing the same fucking thing they were doing back then. I have family in Tennessee that's the same way, and it's just it is the beauty again of this information age, and what's happening now is that people are being exposed to points of view that they're not regularly exposed to, and at some point you can't ignore it anymore, you can't look away. And so I don't know, hopefully the winds of change are blowing, and
they should be. I mean, the thing is that right now everybody's kind of in upheaval. I think also probably part of the reason why it was so virulent was that also we've been cooped up for about 2 or 3 months, and we weren't. And for the first 2 of those 3 months, it seemed like to us that we're gonna die somehow. This thing, even though the death rate is fairly low, it's gonna come out and shoot us randomly in the head, kind of thing. It's sort of like if you're facing like a bunch of people and it's like 40 people and you only got 8 bullets, which chance do you want to take if the guy fires the gun at you? Like, it most likely, probability wise, will not hit you, but at the same time you're kind of like, I don't want to be that person. You get what I mean?
1 million people died. Yeah, I mean it's yeah, those are ugly numbers. Yeah,
like, and luckily they're reduced, like at least the probability right now, but still, like further still, but still nobody wants to play with that,
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to wonder what the fuck's going to happen after all this. People have, I mean, COVID has not existed for a week plus right now, and all the numbers are saying that there's going to be a pretty ugly uptick after all this stuff. So
what's funny is that this is also what I noticed too about the media. They tend to release things in the middle of stuff, so nobody really picks up on that. And I noticed they barely reported it, but even Reuters and AP, this is not like biased quote-unquote news sources that are considered. They provide a lot of the news, right? Although that's kind of weird in itself. But Reuters and AP actually found out that, the countries that were the hardest hit, Spain and Italy, of the coronavirus, COVID-19. Sorry, I shouldn't just say coronavirus, there's many. But COVID-19, they found out that the viral load is way less. So the current mutation is weak compared to the other mutation. So that's a good thing. I mean, so that's a positive direction. So at least the trend seems to be that it's, even if you get infected, it's not so bad. And again, I'm not downplaying anything. It's just what I read, and I thought that was interesting. I understand world events and shit just happens no matter what, but I find it very interesting that you guys aren't. They're not even reiterating that point now. That's the thing I find funny. And then the WHO came out saying, "Oh yeah, we've discovered it. You know, if you're asymptomatic, it doesn't spread." I'm like, but wait a minute, you had an earlier tune earlier that we were all going to die. Like, what is this?
Well, they walked that back again this morning, so who knows what to think in terms of that stuff. But
yeah, it's kind of like you feel sort of like there's puppeteering here. And again, I'm not trying to make everything a conspiracy. Just sometimes you're just like, you can't go back and forth. What the hell is this shit? You know, like after a while you start questioning it. You know.
Yeah, I don't have any idea I don't have any idea where this thing's headed. I mean, I know that states started just throwing doors open based on no science and nothing. So hopefully we're okay. I am rooting for us to be okay, but we are not behaving rationally always.
Well, I think being cooped up for 3 months and being told you're going to die, and then all this drama happens, you're like, you know. And I'm not trying to say that there shouldn't have been attention called, but it's like, it seems like the media is like kind of stoking the fires of everybody. And I'm kind of just like, look, you know, I mean, now they're saying, oh, if you're asymptomatic, it's highly likely that you're not going to spread it. I'm like, well, wait a minute, you were here, like it was jumping to people, like what the hell? So I'm just kind of laughing about the whole thing. It's kind of, I don't know why. As I said, I'm not trying to make fun or light of the situation. It's just I'm just kind of laughing at the irony of all this, and I'm just like, the only thing that you can really do is just kind of take care of yourself with what you know, and just, I just made me realize, like, even, and I don't know, I sometimes kind of have this weird feeling that the whole pancreatic tumor thing kind of was like boot camp for my mind before all this shit happened, sort of, and I kind of like had to
That's
go.
Funny.
Oh yeah, like I kind of had to like, I was kind of like going, I see like a weird correlation, I guess, in mind patterns with my stuff versus like the rest of the world. Like we're told we're essentially going to die because, I mean, I think you know, but like I was told like chances are I might have a malignant mass in my system.
Yeah.
And then usually, and I was playing a game of craps that I didn't even buy into, and then it turned out to be that 1% that I won the jackpot. But still, it's like, I kind of got to a point like when all else fails, you're like, look, it's never going to be 100% safe. No matter how many precautions we take, we just might as well do the thing. And I'm not saying do it stupidly. Like, I still wear a mask around people in a crowd. But where I live, it's like people are more than 6 feet away from each other. So I pull the mask down and walk around and just breathe air because I have to, you know, because even though I'm masked with a valve, it's just not good. Like, it recirculates the old air and stuff. But if you have a cloth mask, it's worse. It feels like there's somebody's hand over your face during the heat. So like, at least it's more breathable, and I can use the stuff better if I'm just able to like just have masks with valves. But even then, it's like, up to a point I'm just like, look, you know, I have to live life as best as I can with these current conditions. It just, the parameters are constantly shifting. I'll go with what parameters I know to be true and go on from there. And I don't mean like, oh, you're a terrible person if you wear one. Oh, you're a terrible person if you don't. Blah, blah. I'm just kind of like, look, at this point, it's just like, well, we'll have to like see. And I think that's the scariest fucking thing for everybody to think about. I think it just, in a way, it kind of, and again, you might think I'm silly for saying this, but sometimes like when we want to take a risk, you know how you're talking about risks and such. Sometimes it's like, well, this is a risk, you know. We're either going to die of it or not. We might as well just see what happens. Because, you know, the people that are supposedly the big experts and everything, they're saying one thing and then the next day they say another. So it's like, what am I supposed to believe?
Yeah.
And I know it's tough for everybody. And again, I'm not trying to be like pushing one thing or another. It's just, I guess I'm weirdly fatalistic that way on my end.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, I think just like the overly striated points of view on defiance or agroness with people is like, they kind of, I remember reading a ethics book or something, and it was an elementary ethics book, but you know how people, they kind of don't want to let loose of their positions because they feel like it's like a little death to them. So but then we're fed this thing, oh, you be open-minded, meaning like you accept everything. It's like everything's not going to be good for you either. So it's like we're kind of fed this weird dichotomy of like you have to be super accepting of everything or you have to be super intolerant. Those are the only two things. It's like, well, if I just know that some things are bullshit, I just don't need to do them.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's the thing, is it's all bullshit. I mean, we like to draw a little box around 4 or 5 things that, you know, that's us. You know, I am whatever. I'm a Republican. I'm, you know, gay. I'm hetero. I'm, you know, I'm this. I'm that. I'm black. I'm white. I'm, you know, whatever. I'm you know, I'm a Baptist. I'm a Buddhist. And it's all, you know, I mean, that's what Zen teaches us, is that it's all an illusion. I mean, it's, you know, think about the way we've divided the world up, right? There's, you know, there's not a line that says, there's not an actual line that says this is California and this is, you know, whatever, you know.
Well, unless we drive to Vegas and it's like, hey, you're now entering Nevada. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, there's that, but yeah, but it is all a construct of our minds. You know what I'm saying? It's there. We like to put these walls and these divisions up between things and between us, right? Yeah. And they're useful in a way. I mean, you know, it's useful in that you're not allowed to use my credit cards, right? Yeah, and you're not allowed to just walk into my house and open up the refrigerator, right?
Yeah, like, what the fuck are you doing? Get out of here.
Yeah, so they're useful in a way, but they're also, you know, very damaging, and they're like 100-pound weights that we sort of are dragging around behind us a lot of the time. And so, you know, I'm not saying they're not useful sometimes. All I'm saying is, like, you know, maybe don't build a wall around them and die on the hill of one of these things, right? They're not that important.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, for me, it's like, what hill do you want to die on? But I think everybody does have a hill they want to die on. It's just like, it's going to be stupid. Like, if it's like, I disagree with you. Well, fuck you. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You're an asshole. By the way, I'm going to unfriend you and be public about it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But all I just said was I didn't like French fries. The fuck?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, because that was my comic today. Like, I would just see so many people doing this thing, like, I unfriended X amount of people. Don't you feel proud of me? And I'm like,
yeah.
It's as simple, you just go in and friend the person. I don't understand what the fuck.
Yeah, well, it's like, I mean, you know, those are, you know, you get into those political debates and it's like, oh, yeah, I unfriend, you know, I'm going to unfriend any Trump supporter. Well, it's like, well, you know, maybe that person needs to hear from you. You know what I'm saying?
Right? Or
maybe
just like,
maybe it's not the best thing to do. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I'm going to unfriend you because I disagree with you is pretty absurd and childish, and it's, you know, take your fucking ball and go home.
Yeah, it's just more like, oh, I just don't want to play with you anymore. I'll just unfriend you quietly. I mean, I don't know how many times I've actually publicly said I unfriended somebody. Maybe once, but I think that was a dude that sent me a dick pic. After I fuck with him.
That's fair.
Yeah, but I fucked with him. I mean, like, that's an obvious thing. Like, if the person's being really fucking weird and obsessive and strange and just misbehaving, but usually they take themselves out the door. Like, there's this one guy that friended me. We had a mutual friend, and I don't mind talking and having prolonged conversation, but, you know, over IM is going to be different because sometimes you have to go and get shit done. Like, you know, there's times I've IM'd you and you just said, oh, yeah, cool. And then you had to go do something else. Like, I had to go do something else. I wasn't hi, are you paying attention to me? Hi. I'm like, dude, calm down. Like, that's how he was. And it was just like, and I just kind of ignored him because I'm just like, look, you know, I can't be at your beck and call. I don't, first of all, fucking know you. And secondly, number two, we don't have any business of any sort together. You're not my friend, but you're just like kind of being weird and needy, so I don't need to talk to you. So I think he removed himself off my friends list, but it's like, I think dick pic immediately disqualifies you. Well, no, you should have public humiliation, like what I did with. Well, it was weird because, like, the story behind that is just like, I posted it up, but I censored his name out, and I obviously censored the dick because, you know, I don't want to be kicked off Facebook for porn.
Sure.
And but it was a really weird looking one, I'm gonna say. It just, there looked like there was something wrong. And, like, literally, I first saw that and I said, does he have penis cancer? I don't know what the fuck he is. So, like, when I did that, that was, like, the first words that came out of my mouth was like, that looks malformed. And I told him that. And then the next thing I said to him was like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Like, you look like you have something wrong." And I saw that he deleted the picture immediately.
Yeah.
And he says, "I'm sorry, that was an accident." And he said, "What do you mean by what's wrong?" And then I just, "No, you don't get to eat that. Sorry." She's trying to eat my bread, and she's a little fat ass. Sorry, but yeah.
I like the idea of an accidental dick pic. That's really funny.
Oh, it was funny as hell. So I was like laughing about that shit.
I wonder how many real accidental dick pics there have been. Like what percentage of dick pics have actually been accidental? Like, do you think there's ever been one?
I think there's been accidental nudes. Like, one of my friends, like, he accidentally received some nude pictures from one of his friends that was a woman, but she really meant to send it to her significant other, and he just like deleted it. And he says, "What do I do? What do I say to her?" I said, "Well, hold on, let me put my fat ass black cat here." One of the things I just told him, okay, from a girl's perspective, she's probably going to be really, really upset that she sent the wrong pictures to somebody. And I just said, "Look, just tell her, hey, you accidentally sent me some nudes. I deleted them. Everything's fine, but I think you meant to send it to somebody else." And I said, chances are she'll say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And at least you've alleviated her fear that you actually have naked pictures of her. But going back, so this guy did it, and it was funny because when I posted it in a group and I had censored his name and the penis, some of the girls were asking me, "Okay, I want to know what this looks like." I'm like, "You don't want to know it looks like, it's ugly." And I had to actually send so many pictures of this dude's dick to people that Facebook started to flag me for spam.
That's funny.
Even though it was a messenger, but like all of them were like, "God, that looks bad."
That's funny.
And I said, eventually what's going to happen, this guy's karma, is that he's going to drop trow in front of some nice young lady, and they're about to hit it on, and she's like, "Wait, you're Chernobyl dick."
Yeah, I recognize that.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, so it's like, I think I fucked that guy up for that.
Yeah, I would have named names, I think, but you're better than I am.
Well, I think, because, like, you're a guy, and, like, some guys were, like, really ashamed of it. Like, he spoke for the rest of the male part of the human race. I'm like, no, it's okay. He's just, like, a flasher.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, like, when we were growing up, it was like, they had the guys that were stereotypically with the trench coats, and they would just go and expose themselves, but then, if they caught them, they would go to jail and get slapped with a sex offender thing. But with the random dick pics, that takes away all that. So... Yeah, so it's like, it's so funny. Dropping trout. Tarika's laughing. Chernodong, that's what he said too. So, but check out Ryland's. Like, why astral projection? I have to ask you that. Why astral projection in the jump?
So, the artist Fabio Alves is the artist who drew Banjax for me. And once you kind of get an artist of his caliber on the hook, you kind of try to keep them working. For you. And so we were talking about what our next book was going to be. And I have plenty of things kind of, in the chamber that I could have sent him. But I think the best thing you can do sometimes, particularly, for the artist, but for you also, is to kind of go and ask the artist, "Hey, what do you want to draw?" And so usually when I do that, an artist is like, "Let me think about it. Maybe this, maybe that." Fabio had this thing holstered. It was like, before I even finished the sentence, he was like this. And so he had this kind of kernel of an idea. It was just just something that takes place in the world of astral projection. And that is because Fabio actually practices astral projection. So there is, in the book, there is this community of online practitioners that this guy kind of falls into, and that actually exists. And Fabio, the artist, is sort of part of this whole thing. He's a regular practitioner. He has a teacher that sort of guides him through all of this stuff. And so it was a world that that he was excited about. He wanted to do something, and then again, I've been paid for a long time to write action movies, and so I kind of had to find the story in it, and so. Came in and set like what I think is a pretty badass thriller in this world, and so that's how it came about. Interesting in that, like, Fabio is a true believer when it comes to this stuff, but I was coming to it, particularly with the Zen stuff. It's like I was coming to it as a skeptic. It wasn't anything that I had ever experienced. So started off kind of with the attitude that, well, in real life, this is probably horseshit, but let me take a look at this. What I will say is that I spent a lot of years meditating and, going on, 7-day, 10 days Zen retreats, and where you spend 12 hours a day staring at a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, some pretty fucked up shit happens every once in a while.
What do you mean? Like, what example do you have?
I mean, it's not. It's hard to even put into words, but you sort of, I don't know. You get a sense of something, something more, something bigger, and I don't know what to. I don't know what name to put. Some people would call it God or the universe or whatever. I don't know what to call it and how to explain it. I don't think I'm capable of explaining it. And it's fleeting, I think you sense it for, some people get the same sense when they fucking pray, right?
Yeah.
You sort of connect with something, and those are my experiences. And so just a long-winded way of saying, like, the specific experiences are relevant, but coming from that Zen place where it's like, I believe what I see and what I can put my hands on. Well, like, there's also this other thing, right? Mm-hmm. There are these things out there that we can't explain and that we are incapable of explaining or fully comprehending. And so I think that, I think this world touches on a lot of that stuff. And for Fabio, this is how he kind of expresses that. And so I was able to kind of understand it on that level.
Yeah.
And so, and the processes are not dissimilar. You actually, when you astral project, you usually start by meditating. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how you sort of wade into those waters. And so, there was a lot about it that I understood. But yeah, it was an artist initiated project, which was an interesting dance.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I kind of wondered, if, I'm not an expert in Zen Buddhism, but I kind of thought, it's kind of transcendental, doing astral projection. I could see how they're related, even though Zen Buddhism really doesn't push you to do that, but it puts you into another elevated state of mind, by just kind of letting some things go. And again, I'm really making it down to the, like, super stupid, simple things, because I didn't study it. You would know better. But from what I understand of it, that's what it is.
Well, yeah, I think that, I think that we try to avoid the whole elevated state of mind thing. I mean, it's that, the real hook there is that your current state of mind, whatever it is actually an elevated state of mind, and there's not any state of mind that is bigger and badder and cooler than this one. And so I think it's mostly about kind of coming to terms with that. But yeah, I mean, there's similarities with any sort of spiritual pursuit. I think if there's one thing I have come to terms with, is that whether it's Christianity or Buddhism or whatever, the message at its heart is really the same. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, don't be a shithead.
Pray or meditate, be excellent to each other, that sort of thing. We're all, whatever name you put on God or the universe or whatever, it's I think we're all talking about the same thing. But I think you get in trouble where when you say, well, it's this and not this, or it has to be this, or I'm going to fight you over it.
I'll unfriend you. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. I'll unfriend you on Facebook. So yeah. So this is Fabio's spiritual practice. There are similarities to mine, and so it was easy for me to kind of understand.
Yeah, the artwork's really good from what I see of it. So
yeah,
guys, go on. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say he's really talented, and the colorist Edson Pereira is excellent also. So yeah, hell of a team. It was good to keep them together again.
Oh, that's good. So you're gonna keep them, your team, together forever and ever and ever?
I would love to. That's the plan. But we'll see. I mean, I think Fabio is going to be drawn for Marvel at some point in the near future. So I don't know how long I'll be able to keep him, but we'll see.
Yeah, he certainly deserves to. Oh yeah, Raw Dog's here. He says, "Got to roll. It's been real." So there you go, right there. So yeah, so it's about almost 1:30. So guys, please support Ryland. Yes, he made goal, but help him exceed that goal, because we gotta make this like fucking Kickstarter sexy. I mean, you guys are helping me towards my goal. You know, it's all or nothing for me. It's all or nothing, but he surpassed that. So like, be there to go and further his goal. I guess that's the cheesiest way to say it, right? So you guys have a good day. Yeah, and by all means, check it out. I've also pinned it, Ryland, in my Facebook Live. So
cool.
The thing, so people can easily go to that. Go ahead and check it out, and you guys have a great day, okay? So take care of yourselves, be good to each other, and listen to each other.